talk about Luca, Anthony Mackie, and creator intent. So I watched Disney's Pixar's Luca the day it came out, and a few times since. I love it. Though I've noticed many people didn't enjoy this animated film as much as I did. And a lot of conversation around this movie pertains to how some people are interpreting it as a queer themed film. And I have some thoughts about this, again, as well as on Anthony Mackie, who plays Sam Wilson, who is now Captain America but was formerly the Falcon in the MCU. And specifically his recent comments in the interview he did with Variety. And these two topics might seem unrelated, but I'm going to connect them, damn it. And this actually might even make sense. Wow, must be a Tuesday. But specifically, I'm going to talk about the correct way to interpret art, or rather, the incorrect way. So, Luca is thematically about friendship, about gaining confidence through peer support, about being different, and about finding those who will accept you. It's about family, both abandonment and connection. It's about dreaming of more, in Luca's case specifically, his yearning to learn. It's about othering, fearing and ridiculing perceived outsiders. And it's a kid's movie, so it's also about the underdogs defeating the bully. Pretty standard. It's sweet, adorably charming kids' film. And it's also just real gay. And what I mean by this is that a lot of those aforementioned themes above are also easily an analogy for the queer experience. Luca and Alberto, two of the main characters in Luca, are two sea monsters who transform to pass as humans when on lands, meaning they can easily hide their true identity from townsfolk who want to kill them for just being who they really are. And on that note, the persecution of sea monsters by the Portoroso townspeople can easily be a metaphor for homophobia and anti-queer propaganda, particularly that which was very common in the 20th century. Luca's parents, as it pertains to the 20th century, I think Luca takes place in the 1950s or 60s. Not really sure. Just based on some movie posters. Anyway, I digress. Luca's parents are afraid humans, specifically his mother is afraid. And when they learn their son is visiting the human world, they endeavor to send him off with his creepy Uncle Ugo to the deep. Which sounds like some homophobic parents who want to send their young, questioning son to conversion therapy or something equitable. As for Alberto, his father, Bruno perhaps, already took off, abandoning him. Oh yeah, homeless queer youth? Unheard of. Julia is a great little ally, sticking up for Alberto and Luca as they are picked on by a group of older boys, mainly Ercole, who mocks everyone, seemingly, who isn't from Portorosa, which includes Julia herself. Luca and Alberto end up staying with Julia and her father, Massimo. Massimo is this giant Italian fisherman who believes in and hunts sea monsters. Massimo, on a side note, also actually only has one arm, and states that this is how I came into the world. And honestly, this is really great for kids to see, particularly kids who don't have the standard 2 arms and 2 legs. Also, Born This Way by Lady Gaga, that's not a queer anthem for nothing. Being gay isn't a choice or a lifestyle. Queer people are born that way, or as Massimo puts it, they came into the world this way. In getting to know Julia, Luca learns about school and stars and towns and is fascinated. Luca wants to go to school with Julia, while Alberto tries to argue that the school wouldn't accept him, or rather his true identity as a sea monster. To prove to Luca that people will only turn on him if they knew who he really was, Alberto outs himself as a sea monster, and as expected, Julia has a very bad reaction. Unexpectedly, though, Luca also turns on Alberto and calls him a sea monster to save himself and essentially remains in the closet. I'm gonna stop winking. I really look weird when I do it, and I regret the decision I made to do that. I'm so sorry. Anyway, this is actually kind of very common story in queer films and movies and books and stuff. I don't know why, but that's, that's a story that's told a lot. Maybe a lot of people experience that. I don't know. I digress. Eventually, the boys are accepted by Julia and Massimo because they got to know them first, and before learning about who they really were, they got to know them as people. Once they are accepted by them, the rest of the townspeople then sees Luca with his parents, seeing that they're just like any other family, and then they too are accepted by just the town in general. And the film has a bit of a heavy-handed message from Luca's grandmother saying some people will never accept him, but some will, and he seems to know how to find the good ones. So all this is not even to mention the movie looks like Pixar's less creepy version of Call Me By Your Name. Luca and Alberto can easily be read as a budding couple. And I mean, Alberto had that train run at the end as if we haven't seen the half of it. Come on. Of course, they can also just be platonic friends. And I'll get more into that when I talk about Anthony Mackie's recent statements. So this movie has such strong parallels to a queer narrative. Thousands of people see it. There are so many tweets, reviews, articles, YouTube videos, etc. And they're from queer and straight people alike. So many people see the parallels. Yet the creator, the director, Enrico Casarosa, has something to say about this. This is where I actually have a problem. And on a side note, I do want to say that he did kind of retract a bit of what he said originally, and he seems more willing to engage in the queer metaphor now that the film is out. And I do want to be clear that I don't think Luca queerbaited at all, as noted above. Casarosa, before the movie came out, came down very hard with a no, saying that Luca did not depict a queer couple or queer characters. I also don't think for that reason that Luca is queer-coded. It just so happens to have a strong LGBTQ plus, allegory. Given Disney Plus's penchant towards queerbaiting with their ridiculous number of first gay characters, which are barely even blink and you'll miss them, if that, and the ludicrous number of queer-coded characters, usually villains, they have in their movies, it's honestly a miracle Luca didn't queerbait. So now I'd like to touch on a few quotes from Enrico Casarosa. All right, let's break this down a little, or a lot. First and foremost, Casarosa shows a fundamental misunderstanding of what it is and means to be queer. You can be gay and never have had a significant other. Whoa, shock. In fact, most kids probably know or have an inkling that they're queer long before they begin to date. That's kind of standard. Like, as soon as you start having crushes, you begin to kind of notice some things. And generally speaking, you start having crushes before you start dating. Maybe I'm weird. I don't know. Also, I think that Luca and Alberto are about like 13 and 14 years old respectively. That's what a lot of sites or even like fandom are saying. And most people have had a crush by then. They probably haven't dated. I agree with his comments, but you've had a crush, probably. And I'm all here for ace representation, but like this isn't it. And further regarding his comments, in the interview where he says that the idea when Julia comes into the picture is when you begin to get the idea that romance would come up, sir. This means he didn't even consider a queer character. And as a straight man, that's fine. But when people start to point out the interpretation of the film as queer, his comments just come together and really, really fall short. particularly when he said that specific line. The biggest issue really is Casarosa's lack of understanding queerness. And it's not just Casarosa. And I'm going to look at Anthony Mackie's recent comments during an interview he did with Variety. Again, I do need to preference that I don't believe Anthony Mackie is in any shape or form homophobic or hateful, though I do think his comments are homophobic and additionally misogynistic. And that just comes from ignorance, not hate. Now, however, ignorance is not a pass. And we can use his words as a teachable moment and learn something. And I hope he learned something. So this is the whole big long spiel that he said. So a lot to break down there. First and foremost, if someone is still using terms like homosexuality and homosexual, they clearly don't have their fingers on the pulse of the queer community, as GLAAD has had that on their terms to avoid list since 2015. Anyway, I digress. Again. A lot of directors, showrunners, writers, and actors, etc. dislike slash fiction, which would be like headcanon queer couples like Destiel, Stuckey, Spurk, John Locke, etc. And they don't understand the reason people so frequently seem to read a queer narrative into what they had intended to be a platonic one. And the reason is pretty simple. It stems from a severe lack of representation. That's it. When almost every single relationship you see on screen is either platonic or heteronormative, you start to read into the platonic ones because that's really all you have. And the problem comes when writers and directors, showrunners start to realize this, and instead of adding any actual queer representation, they bait. They purposefully hint that the character as being queer, but never confirm it in any way. That way they can keep people who want to see real representation coming back with the tiniest glimmer of hope, but they never verify, so they don't ostracize their straight audience. And I don't understand the assumption that having a gay couple will immediately cause straight people to riot, but okay. And as for films, studios don't want to lose that sweet, sweet China money. Obviously, this is not, to disparage any Chinese people, but rather the government, as they do have, they have a lot of rules and regulations towards getting films to be allowed into their theaters, and the government has to approve, and they do not approve of queer content. So anyway, middle finger to the government, not the people. Now buckle up, because I'm about to blow some minds. You ready for this? All right. Queer men can be masculine. What? Whoa. Queer men can have a great, wonderful platonic relationship with other men. Hell, two queer men can have a strong, non-toxic friendship with one another. Crazy, right? And oddly enough, queer people, stick with me here, queer people are people. I know. Whoa. So this idea Mackie is saying here, I do kind of agree, very, very, very kinda, in that we do need more non-toxic friendships depicted, and that's kind of what Casarosa was trying to explain as well. But to say that both or either of those individuals in that relationship can't be queer is ridiculous and absolutely regressive. And lastly, when Mackie was saying there's nothing more masculine than being a superhero, okay, no. Just no. It's not masculine at all. Doing what's right, standing up for yourself and for others, fighting for justice, that is not masculine, that's not feminine, that's human, full stop. Even that includes actual fighting. For fuck's sake. There have been, as I noted, many other examples of people being very resistant to queer codings, like Supernatural, Teen Wolf, Sherlock, like just so many. And, the examples that I gave, honestly, with Luca and Anthony Mackie, I just chose them because they really irked me in Pride Month 2021, all right? And I can go into a whole history of the Hays Code and how back in the day, filmmakers had to queer code if they wanted to show any LGBTQ plus representation at all. And it didn't originally start off as something bad, but a way to get around these really archaic and homophobic and transphobic regulations. And then how the MPAA was developed, and they created a rating system, and as the Hays Code slowly dissolved, getting us into like 1968-ish. And then at that point, filmmakers really didn't add any representation in the beginning. They began to very slowly, and originally, as you know, typical when they begin adding in any kind of representation for any group, they rely on overly offensive stereotypes. And that's honestly been going on for decades. And Disney is a bigger offender of this. Again, see most of their villains. And that kind of brings us up to recently, where you have, you know, blink and you'll miss them gays, last minute gays, barrier gays. And we do have some queer films, but most of those are overly tragic, typically ending in death, or just coming out stories. And those happen to be integrated into television as well as films. And it's like those are the only things queer people can do. I believe, you know, I said this earlier, is that, you know, queer people are, and get this, people. And they have friends and families and all that kind of stuff too. And they can be in stories that have nothing to do with relationships, oddly enough. Crazy. But going into all that would actually take a long time. So I do actually have a link to some other people who went into that kind of stuff, who are way smarter and more eloquent than myself, who explain those things if you are curious. What I will explain is how we should interpret art. Yeah, that's right. I went on and on and on for like half an hour. Who knows how long I've actually been talking and what I will and will not edit out of this. But this was my main topic. So how we should interpret art. You know, let's look at author or creator intent. Does it matter? And I posit, no, it doesn't matter. For instance, it doesn't matter that J.K. Rowling considers Dumbledore gay because she never mentions it in the book. It doesn't matter. What matters is the content, which is also known as internal or public evidence. It's the actual what we can read, what we can watch, what we can listen to, or what we can see. The creator made something and they put their art into the world, and maybe if they're lucky, they made a little money off of it. Woohoo! But beyond that, it's now up to the reader, viewer, whatever, to interpret. And a lot of pieces of art, movies, paintings, books, statues, so on and so forth, have agreed upon themes for interpretation. For example, you know, you should probably get, you know, a life is short theme in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Additionally, though, you might read Cameron Fry, Ferris's best friend, as suffering from depression or being autistic. But you may or may not get that about Cameron, but pretty much everyone gets the life is short thing about, you know, as an overarching theme. So here's the fun part. All of those things are right. You're never wrong in how you interpret art. Now, of course, you are coming in with your own biases and experiences and perceptions or lack of perceptions. And I think that's often a hindrance for creators. As I mentioned above, a lot of times in early, you know, bringing in representation, they rely on offensive stereotypes. That's because the people who are writing it probably aren't in that group of people. And so they lack the perception and the experiences of that demographic to be writing for them. So that's kind of what I meant by that. Anyway, what I'm getting at slowly is that it doesn't matter what a creator says in terms of what their art is supposed to mean. It can help, you know, get an idea, but it in the end doesn't matter. They had their chance to include it and didn't. It can help inform, as I said earlier, but at the end of the day, the meaning truly is in the hands of those who are engaging in it, like reading or watching. And if you see a story as queer, then it is. That's it. If you think it is, then it is. What Mackie and Casarosa and a host of others don't understand is people are only shipping like slash fiction because They have so little internal evidence anywhere. What studios do understand is that they can get away with it and keep profiting off LGBTQ plus people by baiting and coding without being explicit, and that is wrong. Then to turn around and tell someone their interpretation is wrong, that's just cruel. And a lot of people do that, and it's really sickening. So don't be like Anthony Mackie. Don't be like Casarosa. Don't be like those Teen Wolf people. Don't be like the Supernatural people. Be like Mark Hamill. And with that note, thank you so much for watching this long rant. And I really hope you have a phenomenal day. If you have anything you would like me to rant about, you can leave a comment below. And at some point, I will try to get to it. And yeah, be awesome.